Bundys Garage, John Bundy here. Today I'm going to be doing spark plugs on a Honda V6 J-Series engine. Here are some of the parts that you're going to need. You want to get yourself a rag, compressed air if you have it, dielectric grease, 6-inch 3/8 extension, 3/8 ratchet, 5/8 socket, screwdriver, 6 inches of 3/8 hosing, some anti-seize, spark plugs, and then gloves if you have them to keep your hands clean. So let's get started. Alright, two things I forgot to mention to you. A 10mm socket and ratchet, and then also you're going to need, where'd it go? A 6 metric Allen wrench to be able to get the ignition coil screw out. So you need those two things as well. So first we're going to go ahead and take off this, that's never a good sign. First we're going to take this cover off. Just turn these halfway. Comes right off. Next thing you want to do is take this intake manifold cover off. 4 10mm bolts. This is the only thing that holds this thing on. Comes right off. Alright, what you're looking right here is the ignition coils towards the radiator, core support. These 3 connectors right here connect to the ignition coil. These bolts are 6mm bolts, hexes, so we need to disconnect all 3 of these plugs and then get these bolts out and pull the ignition coils out, coil packs. So all you gotta do to get these things out, there's a little tab right here. Let's see if you can see it. Tab is right there. 1, 2, 3. Just squeeze those together. Comes right off. Then we'll get the coil pack out. Now get these packs out, the ignition coil, all you gotta do is twist a little bit and they should pull right out. Try to keep them more to the way you came out. I'm just putting these on top of the intake manifold. Just exactly how I took them out, so they're laying on top. Okay, as you can see, these are the 3 spark plug holes next to the radiator towards the front of the engine. Just took off the ignition coil packs. Now if you have access to compressed air, it's a good idea to blow these holes out before you remove the spark plugs. Reason for that is that dirt, sand, debris can get down in there, and when you pull the spark plug out, you don't want this dropping right into the cylinder and ruining anything. So if you have access to compressed air, go ahead and shoot a little bit out down into the hole to clean it out. Make sure that grabs on. So this first one here came out. When you put this the socket, spark plug socket, and the extension on, you might have to finesse it in a little bit because it wants to hit on the core support. So just wobble it around a little bit to get that thing out. second one. Alright, here's the third one on this side. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the new ones in, and we'll do the back side as well. Now the key thing to remember when you do this is that you do not want to, at all costs, you do not want to cross thread the spark plug down in there. And I've seen guys, when I was at the dealership, they would run them down with pneumatic air tools, a 3/8 air ratchet, and hope that it goes in. So my dad always taught me to start these things by hand. Now you ask, how do I get my hand down in that deep hole? Well, that's why I brought this 3/8 tubing out. It's about 6 inches long, 3/8, and what you do is you take the spark plug, the new spark plug, and you slide it over the porcelain. Now put some iridium ones in here. I don't know if you guys can see that. There you go. Maybe a little bit too much light here. I'm going to go ahead and replace these stock ones with iridium ones. You put it onto the new spark plug, and you feed it down into the hole. And this allows you to feel exactly where it needs to go, so that you don't run the risk of cross-threading this thing. And you can actually feel, you keep turning it, and when it bottoms out, well, it doesn't bottom out. When it's too tight, the tubing will just turn, and you know that it's secure in there. You know it's not cross-threaded. So, like I said, and as a dealership, I saw guys run these things down with air tools, and I just bit my tongue and didn't say anything. But if you cross-thread one of these spark plug holes, it is no fun. So just take a little bit extra time here and run these down with the 3/8 tubing first, and you shouldn't have any problems. And once you feel it catch, you're pretty much in the clear. So go ahead and let's run it down with the spark plug socket and the extension. And there's torque specs for these things. What I always like to do is when I feel it catch, I don't even go a quarter of a turn. Maybe just, a smidgen, a hair past where it's at. You don't want to run the risk of breaking these things inside there. And also, a good rule of thumb on these particular engines is to do this job when it's cold, not when it's hot, because there's a sleeve in there that can possibly come out. Okay, it's getting tight, and a little bit more. That's it. Alright, this side's done, so I'm going to go ahead and put the coils back on, put the bolts back on, close this side up, and then I'll go ahead and do the other side. Alright, next thing I like to do before I put the coil packs back on, I like to take a little bit of dielectric grease and put it down into where the coil meets the plug. So there it is. So I'll have to go ahead and take a little grease and just coat the top a little bit to go on top of the spark plug, and helps with electrical conduit, and also when you time to do the spark plugs again, it makes it a little bit easier to take them off. And these just bottom out. Alright, all the bolts for the ignition coils are back in place and secured. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen up these. Now don't worry too much about when you take these off, don't worry about too much crossing these wires, because really you cannot do that the way the wires are preformed and the way that they are, the length of the wire as well. It's really hard to get this wrong. So that side is done there. That was the easy side. Let's go to the hard side, from the engine to the firewall. That is more difficult, and show you how to do that as well. Alright, here's the number 1 cylinder coil pack spark plug. Once again, you have your connector here. So go ahead and pull that up. Just squeeze that. And then loosen that one up. And go ahead and let's take that all the way. Try not to drop this back there. And go ahead and pull the coil pack out. Alright, here's the next one. Let's go ahead and get that one out. Like I said before, try not to drop these back there. Alright, let's blow air down there before we do anything else. While we're here, we'll go ahead and take the plug out. Alright, let's go ahead. Once again, I have the tubing to start the plug with. Able to feel it catch. If it gets hung up a little bit, go ahead, just move it around. It'll keep going. Alright, it's there. Let's do the other two. Alright, here's the next one. Alright, last one here. Alright, they all started good. So I'll run these down until they get snug, and then just a little bit past that. Alright, that was it. I tightened up all the 3 spark plugs on this side. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out. Let's put the coil packs back in. Already put the dielectric grease on those. Alright, let's go ahead and put the bolts back in. One thing to remember about these coil packs is that if you get a misfire code on one of these type of engines, the J-series engines, and you just can't figure it out, go ahead and swap these coil packs for one You know, just swap, you know, if it's number 1 misfiring, swap number 1 with number 3, or one on the opposing side, one that you know that isn't giving you the code, and that way you can tell if it's the coil pack or possibly something else. I had to do that a couple times. Did spark plug, did what else? Changed spark plugs, changed coil packs, and it was still there. And what it actually ended up being was a bad fuel injector. But swapping the packs actually helped me figure that out. So like I said, if worst case scenario, chase and a miss, go ahead and swap coil packs. Alright, all the bolts are back in for the coil packs. I'm going to go ahead and replace the electric connectors on all of them. Snap back in place. And that was the hardest part of the whole job, was that side there. Alright, let's put the cover back on. Just double check all the connectors. Everything looks good. Humming perfectly, and that's how you change the spark plugs on a J-Series engine.